Guess I should ask our chair first.
Well, I was going to say a few words. We can certainly go around the table. You said Aaron was joining
Erin should be joining via
Zoom?
Zoom,
Okay.
but she just texted and said she's having Wi-Fi issues. But we have
We
quorum.
still have a quorum.
Yep.
And we're not deciding.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'll call the meeting to order. This is a scheduled meeting of the Historic Resources Commission of the City of Albany. We have, it's a public workshop discussion this evening. My name is John Myers. I'm the chair of the commission. Joining us this evening are Commissioner Pinckney, Commissioner McEnany, Commissioner Kaplan, and Commissioner Hackett. Senior moment. Also joining us via Zoom will be Commissioner Tobin. We have Martha Mahoney representing us, and Aaron Glennon from the planning office in attendance this evening, leading the presentation. There will be an opportunity for the public to offer comments. We would just request that the comments be kept to the topic at hand and to limit the duration of those comments to 3 minutes. Before we get going, I would just like to recognize the tremendous contribution that a former or a sitting commissioner of this commission, and note the passing of Norman Rice 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, who served on this commission for 33 years since its founding, and served as its chair for 26 of those 33 years. So we all really lament and the passing of a very dear friend and a very respected colleague. So,
Thank you.
with that, I don't know if anyone would like to offer any other comments.
Like many of us, I have known Norman Rice for seems a lifetime. Came here to Albany after graduation from Harvard in 1953, and was very proud of the fact that he, to his knowledge, the longest serving person to ever serve in official capacity, as both the city historian and member of this board, and any number of activities for the tricentennial celebration and so on, continuously. He felt he had the record. And at age 95, and having been involved in one thing or another through this whole time that he was here with the Albany Institute of History and Art, he was such a good friend to all of us, and he was a person who knew so many people from so many different walks of life, young and old, and people who had specialties of one or another. So if you needed something in historic preservation or in history in general and genealogy and all the different arts that are available, he was an expert in all of them. He knew everyone. He was a friend of so many. We will miss him dearly because he contributed so much for so many generations of Albanians and people that follow our heritage.
Thank you, Jack. I remember on many of our site visits with Norman, invariably he would have visited that house probably many times over prior to our visit, and knew all about the people who lived there, and really, could recount many stories and remembrances. He had a phenomenal mind. With that, I will proceed with our workshop agenda. The first item that we'll be discussing will be 11 Henry Johnson Boulevard in the Washington Park Historic District. And again, this is a discussion for a project that will be coming to the November 17th hearing. So we are looking at the installation of a wrought iron security bars at the first floor windows on the front elevation of this rather prominent residence.
Yes. And the applicant is on tonight. I'll just briefly run through this proposal. So the applicant is requesting approval for the installation of a custom-made wrought iron security bar system measuring 76 inches wide and 77 inches high. They're going to be it'll be based off of the existing basement security bars. I believe, and the applicant can talk to this once we're done, the system has already been fabricated, and they would be anchored into this fenestration opening into the mason or into the brick or mortar joints with 4 anchor points, one at each corner. It's going to be a metal plate that's attached to the building. So this is a current system that is existing over the basement windows. This is the opening where the security bar system would be placed. This is the custom fabricated system. The applicant is requesting approval for this. A few months ago, there was a possible break-in or vandalism attempt at the residence, and one of the windows was broken. She does have concerns that if she is away from the residence for an extended period of time and something like that does happen again, that there could be further damage, not only to the exterior, but also to the interior of the building. So this will be reviewed under the general guidelines and the rehabilitation guidelines of the Historic Resource Overlay section of the zoning ordinance. If any of you have any.
Which floor are you talking?
So it's the first floor. So
What's the circle on the bay window up on the second?
she'll be painting. She's also requesting a paint application,
Oh,
which is a staff review. Not she's just painting to match the existing colors.
Does she have a security system?
I believe she is having one installed, but Julia, she's shaking up.
Yes, not at this moment, but we are having a security system installed as well.
I did, drive down the State Street and then turn the corner on Henry Johnson to take a look at this condition. I only noticed one other house further closer to State Street on Henry Johnson that has bars on the window or grate on the window at the first floor, the living floor level of the building, but they are only half height.
Right.
They go up to the meeting rail of the window and are somewhat, in keeping with the proportion, but this is.
That building is also, I know, is also, the bay is much lower. It's doesn't have a half-story basement level, so it is, those windows are actually like right at sidewalk level as well, or
A little
like
bit above,
pedestrian
but
height,
yeah.
yeah.
So I guess I just find this to be a very, a request that doesn't match what you see in the neighborhoods, and wondering if other strategies might have been explored, like laminated glass, reglazing with laminated glass or something of that nature, to provide the modicum of security. Because, you know, window grills don't prevent somebody from breaking a window. It just prevents them from easy entry through that broken window.
Yeah, Julia, did you, sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Yes, to those questions, I spoke with a gentleman from my window company who installed the new window and asked about specific types of glass that would prevent breaking, and he couldn't offer me options that seemed secure enough. And the idea of the bars was also to prevent larger objects from hitting the window, because it's a physical barrier. I was also concerned about the height, you know, as far as aesthetics is concerned. But another worry of mine was that if we do the bars too low, that somebody might be able to throw something over the bars, and then it would be able to break the glass by getting lodged in between. But one thing to consider, would be I can ask my welder to shorten the top, if that would be more appropriate for the neighborhood. We've tried to keep things in the style of the house. There are, and there's a larger photo, I think, Ms. Glennon, that you showed, with the bars on the lower windows. So we've tried to keep it very similar. And the additional ornament in the middle was something that we borrowed from another house when my elder and I were walking the neighborhood and taking pictures of the different wrought iron bars there.
You would feel that this would be necessary to go,
Can you pull it in, Joe, just a little bit? Pull the mic in.
yeah. You're proposing this would go to the very top of both sashes of the window? Doesn't that seem excessive?
Well, it's supposed to end a little below. It would go, I'd say, to go up to about 75 to 80% of the height of the window.
It seems pretty excessive. If you were going to consider it at all, I would think just the bottom sash would be the only part that you would think of. I mean,
Well, I thought if we take such a big step and have a grill ordered, I wanted to make sure that it covers a substantial part of the window, so that I protect the entire window.
protected from what?
I wasn't there when the damage was inflicted. So it was the left part of the window, the left glass, that was broken. I wasn't in the house. Nobody was in the house when it happened. We just found it broken. And I assume that a large object hit the window, but I can't be sure. So, and there's lots of foot traffic. My worry was that perhaps an item was thrown. And that's, where my thought came from, to make sure that the glass gets covered high enough to make sure that nothing can hit it.
I'm afraid that was covered with an excessive amount of iron there would make it look like it was a halfway house for people who were released from prison and couldn't go out after hours.
I can see your worry. That was my first thought too. was one of the reasons why we added the additional ornament. And I can assure you, we're not holding anybody present in our home.
So I have a couple of questions. One of you two just spoke to a nearby building that had a first floor partial grill.
Correct.
And I kind of lost track as to whether that is higher or lower than what we're looking at relative to the street.
It's lower, let me pull it up.
Oh, that's great. Okay,
Oh, do you have the photo?
that's great. Then while you're looking, have you already had this fabricated? Is that the image that we're seeing? This has already been fabricated. Looks like it, okay. And how about the windows? After the incident, were the windows replaced?
Yes, the windows were replaced, and I want to add one more comment. At the time that we put in the request with the welder to make this, I had done extensive research on the internet, but hadn't been able to find the information on the historic district, and it took me a while to find the right contact information. So that's why this is already fabricated. Had I known everything that I know now, I would have, of course, put in my application first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the window, what manufacturer was the window that was replaced?
Oh, it was just the glass. So
It's just the glass.
mhm.
I think the broken, it was reglazed.
It was just reglazed.
Yeah.
We had a full new, so the left window had a complete new piece of glass inserted.
Okay. So I guess I concur with the other questions raised as to what other approaches to make this feel safer have been followed and or are possible. And certainly the security system, as you asked about. And I'd be surprised that there wasn't another type of glazing that was available. If you were, is it a wood sash?
I believe they're vinyl.
But they were able to.
No, outside is I believe it's, I can't tell you for sure. I think it's wood.
Well, those buttons don't look like they're wood.
Yeah, no, or they're snap-ins or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I could find that.
I guess the only point is there is alternate available glazing that would also could have contributed to some of the protection that you're trying to achieve. I don't know why the contractor didn't know to offer that.
Would that offer similar protection from a high impact? Because if you could refer us perhaps to.
Yes, there's different sorts of safety glazing and other impact resistance glazing. Whether your window frame would receive that or not, was large enough in section to receive it. I don't know anything about your window, but certainly there are windows that receive different levels of security glazing, so that if broken, kind of like your car windshield or other safety glass as required. So yeah, it exists out there. You didn't come across it, or your contractor didn't recommend it, but it's definitely available.
Do you have a idea of the cost of this option?
No, because, well, I don't know, but it's also a function of whether the existing window frames will be deep enough to receive whatever thickness of glass
Yeah.
that will be required. So is your existing glass 1/8 inch? Is it insulated glass? Is it 1/4 inch? What is it, and what would be available? So I
Okay.
have the answers in here. Did you get?
Yep. I'm gonna-
I think the ironwork is quite excessive. Is that it?
That's right up the street, right?
Did we review that? We didn't review the installation of these.
Of these,
Grills,
I don't believe, I'm not sure. I don't believe so, but
I don't recall
No,
it coming in front of us.
no, I don't recall it.
But the,
And we don't know how old they are, how long they've been there.
when were the basement grills installed?
so give me
They were, Mhm.
they've been there at least since the eighties.
So they're not historic, they're
they're-
not original to the building.
I don't know, they could have been there, I'm not,
They don't
give me one-
they don't look original. to
they're
the
in
building.
the,
They appear in the blue form,
they're in the
don't they?
blue form.
Yeah.
There we go. This doesn't come across really well, but in the packet, you can see them if you zoom in on them, they are there. So, I'm not sure when, but it seems like most of the buildings on the street do have them at the basement level, and that's a pretty typical feature. You see it throughout Washington Park Historic District as well as Center Square Historic District, and most of our townhouse structures with basement level apartments, but
Yeah, it detracts from the appearance of the building. And what do you intend to do? You also intend to put up gates for the front door? Because the front door is glass too.
No, we have so behind the door is a vestibule, and then there's a second door behind. And so I thought about it, because you're right, you have to be consistent, but I felt that would just look terrible. And we do have that second door.
Can you go, Erin, to the photograph of the actual fabricated things or grills? So it looks to me that the lower portion has a belly out.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess the first question would be, given the concerns and given that this is fabricated already, and that we've just seen a nearby, not approved by us, but a nearby half security grill, everyone's thoughts about modifications to what's already been invested in, such that it was used at the lower sash only. It would be half as.
Well, the lower sash would, the lower part of that ironwork would go from masonry opening to masonry opening. There's 2 windows there.
Yeah.
It would be good if each grill, if a grill was in a window, per window, like the basement.
Now can
You
we
got
go to
you
the-
got a mullion.
Yeah.
Which really screws things up. That's why they went from brick to brick.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, it's part of a paired window.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no masonry.
Right. I think it may look better if each window had its own grill, like the basement. But it's kind of difficult because that mullion is not an anchoring surface.
Right.
So one thing to note on the left photograph is that the bars are attached to the masonry. And then Erin, if you go back to the adjacent or the nearby building, where it's kind of applied on top of the opening.
Give me 1 second.
Thank you. I think that if there was more conversation, we'd be around this, we'd probably be more comfortable with something that was inset into the masonry opening. We don't know how it's proposed to be installed, but rather than that, right, okay.
it's also pretty reversible.
Mhm.
Yeah. The other factor is there are two buildings there. We're only looking at one. Two of them are set up to be twins of one another. So I don't know if we have a picture. One of the twins will no longer be a twin if this were to take place.
Mhm.
They are meant to be a twin, and we're talking about covering one of them rather radically with the prison-style bars all over on the principal living floor, not the basement. Big difference from something that's high. It seems unlikely that somebody would climb up there. As far as there's glass in all of those windows. If somebody wants to throw a rock through a window, they can hit any glass window anywhere. Probably even on the side, since you have an alley on the right-hand side of it. Why is that so? Why are those two windows in what I presume is a living room so vulnerable that people are attacking it with weapons, throwing things in? It seems like a action.
Yeah. I'm sorry, please finish.
At first, I thought it was an issue of somebody climbing onto, like having a ladder and climbing into the first floor window. And my first thought was putting some type of pigeon proofing down on the sill. Once they get a good grip on that sill, they're gonna be in for some problems. But it's actually the glass that is the issue. Now, that whole grill can be cut in half. So I think it would need modification. Personally, I don't think it should be there. Personally, it's just too much. And I hear what you're saying about protection and things like that. And I really suggest you try to find a bulletproof, shatterproof glass so you don't have to deal with this ironwork. And it's unfortunate that it's already been fabricated. But to me, it just doesn't, it's not in keeping with the historic and architectural character of the building. What could be done is cutting it so that each window gets a gate or ironwork in front of it, so that you would probably have to anchor the ironwork in the sill and the head.
So,
I think we would have to anchor it
In the
in
sill,
the masonry, but through the sill. I think that would be, I would imagine that would be quite difficult. But I have a couple of points, but I can wait.
are you raising the possibility of using the full height security grill, but having it in two and for each staff has their own? And you'd rather have that than say, with that idea,
I'd
a
rather
half?
have nothing. I'd rather have nothing.
Okay,
But if it came down to them installing something, I mean, just having this big wide grill covering two windows, including the mullion, is just too excessive. And it just alters the character of the building. It's gonna alter the character of the building if they were to cut it in half and remove the section that would be covering the mullion and have ironwork for each window, similar to the basement windows. But the basement windows have, the openings are squared off masonry openings.
so if it's more desirable than this, to have two separate panels,
Mhm.
why wouldn't it be more desirable again to have two separate half panels?
That's good too. Yeah, just covering the, either, it's so difficult because they can break the top sash as well as the bottom sash. You know, and I think for the other building, it was the ironwork was put up for somebody, to prevent somebody from getting in, rather than, you know, having an object thrown at it.
I mean, that's the purpose of all this iron, if someone doesn't get in.
Correct.
It wouldn't be difficult to break either top sash or bottom sash of this window.
Mhm.
I'm not even a good shot. I think I have a hard time. I'm more fearful of the hazard that's created in the event that you needed to get the window open and you're just running into a dead end.
Well,
Julia, did you have a comment? I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you. I could talk to my welder and see if two separate panels would be a possibility. I think it would be difficult because in the middle, there's nothing really to install this in, and then we would have to bring it up all the way and cover the whole window, which was raised as a problem before. Number two, I understand there's lots of different, things to consider, and we've tried when we renovated the house to keep everything in period and not make drastic changes. So that's also something that's important to me. If it's felt that it's would be better to make it shorter, I could ask my welder if, you can agree on a height that would be acceptable. I could ask my welder if he can take out part of the middle and bring the top down. Number three, one of our big concerns is safety also. In the house, it's just me and my wife, and we have two small boys. And sometimes we feel that we're a little bit more vulnerable. And I'm not sure if I could knock an intruder over the head in the night. And, of course, what's the likelihood that somebody will break this window again? Could it have been a bird? What's the likelihood that somebody will intrude? Of course, if somebody wants to go in your house, they will succeed. But it make us feel much safer if we had a physical barrier there, both for damage, as well as intrusion.
There's another factor. The Albany Fire Department is not thrilled to see permanent iron bars put on any window. They understand when it's down in the basement and very low that there's a concern of somebody breaking in. Having any window with glass means that any window can be broken. This won't protect any glass. It's unfortunate that you went and invested in this, I am afraid is a totally inappropriate, rather large item. And it's certainly going to, if you're concerned about the neighborhood, it is a twin house. One's a left and one's a right, but they're set up to be twins. And changing one to look so radically different, I think is going to break up the symmetry of what was designed on that road. I think some way to save this is, I think, work out. And again, if you're concerned about two little kids, and if you ever had a fire in the hallway, you couldn't even open up the window to let the firemen rescue the kids.
Go ahead, Julia.
You mentioned the twin house, and I think it's a valid concern, the symmetry of the neighborhood. I could reach out to my neighbor and ask her if she would be, interested if we were to have the welder make a matching grill for her, and I would be willing to bear the cost for that. Perhaps that would be an option, but obviously I cannot speak for my neighbor. And then I wanted to say we have multiple other exits. We have windows in the back. We have a door in the back, the front door, and then a door downstairs to the basement. So we wouldn't block the only exit in a case of fire. We have a I don't know what it's called, one of these ladders that you can roll up on a higher floor that we could also potentially use to come out from one of the other windows.
I would suspect that if we saw two of these, the concerns as we've raised here would be twice as loud. So I don't know that that's I don't think that's a good solution, even though we've got twins. My recommendation is that you've heard the concerns here, and we've talked about some different options in terms of glazing, in terms of the security system, et cetera, and also the possibility, which it's not unanimous by any means here, as you've heard from the discussion, but the possibility of reworking what you've got, bringing it way down in scale. And you, if you're going to consider, if you want to consider that and present that to us, you'll need to talk to the welder, of course, and it would be very helpful to have some sort of a simple sketch showing where that would be relative to the front elevation, how high it would be, because we don't really understand that from just looking at these photographs. So that would be very useful, as well as the anchoring details. And do note that the anchoring details, I think, are they're less prominent as you have at your basement window as compared to the grill that we saw down the street from you to the south of you, that's kind of on top of the overall opening. So as you go through thinking about your options and what you want to present, that's the information that would be helpful for us. Dimensions of the opening and some means to draw your proposal, if there's a revised proposal coming, onto that window opening.
I think the question that has to be asked is, why would you do this at all? If it's, you don't want somebody opening up the window, you can solve that on the inside with a screw that just puts the pieces together when you want to raise it only an inch or two up.
But we didn't hear, you're correct.
If that was your concern.
But we didn't hear that.
You don't need the iron. If the other concern is breaking the window, then replace the window with shatterproof glass. It just seems that if these are the reasons to stop somebody from breaking in, A, or B, to stop people from throwing things in to break the window, there are much cheaper solutions. Mm-hmm. It's just unfortunate that this was attempted.
I was told by multiple contractors that there's no 100% shatterproof glass. So that would have been my preferred option, of course.
Did you go directly to any window manufacturers or window representatives, such as Pella or Harbrook? Did you go to, or were you hearing this through the contractor?
No, I was discussing that with contractors that work with the different suppliers.
So I think the way to get a better answer on that, or to confirm, or whatever, what your contractors told you, is I would call one of the window companies around and let them know what your concern is and see what they have to offer. They're closer to the source of knowing what's available than
the manufacturers, or
there's companies in, I don't know, Aaron's probably got a list.
I have a list of local distributors that work either directly with some of the Anderson, Pella, or Marvin windows that may be able to be.
Well, I mean,
What broke the window?
I
Was a rock thrown through
They're
it?
not sure.
they're not sure.
Was the glass on the inside or the outside?
Inside. So the impact came to the glass from the outside.
Yeah, but did the rock or whatever go through the window?
No, the window didn't shatter. There was an area in the middle that looked like a point of impact that was slightly broken, and then sort of these star-shaped lines where it was fractured, but it didn't shatter. So I saw that the impact must have come from the outside, but there was no object to be found.
Presumably it was an insulated glass.
If it was an insulated window, I don't know.
An insulated window where you have basically 2 layers of glass and an airspace.
Oh yes, it had 2 layers, correct.
And you're saying that the outer layer was broken, but the inner layer was not.
I don't recall if part of the inner layer was broken also, but the majority of the damage was on the outer layer.
I mean, one company you could consult with is Amazing Glass in Albany. Because I replaced there was a break-in at a church locally where they broke out a piece of glass in a doorway or in a door. And I went to Amazing Glass, bought a piece of laminated glass and reglazed the door. So, and they will reglaze insulated units. So you could take the sash to somebody like Amazing Glass and say, I want laminated glass as the exterior light for this window assembly, and they can order it and install it.
I've called Amazing Glass multiple times and left so many messages. I don't know if that's related to the pandemic, but it's been so difficult to get responses from contractors. But I can, certainly reach out again. And
Well, I certainly feel for you. This has been an unusual time with getting responses from contractors and from vendors. But I've had good luck with Amazing Glass, and they've always been very responsive. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's an option to explore.
Did you ever consider a system with bars on the inside of the windows? Having the bars on the inside of the interior of the house.
No, I did not.
Well, I mean, that's a possibility if you're concerned about the security of a person getting through.
Well, but also, I don't want my glass to break again and have to pay for another installation. And then, especially when the temperatures get colder, we had to wait a few days, for the glass to come, and for some time the glass was out. So I think this would be very difficult for me if it was broken again. And I'd also worry sometimes we're away for several days and are unable to get to the house, even if a security camera that we're planning to install, would allow us to see if there's additional damage. But also, with both adults in the house working full time, it's extremely difficult to take care of, everything else in addition to our jobs and, everything that we have to take care of in regular life.
A fairly inexpensive way of maybe protecting the glass at this time, even just temporarily, could be a piece of plexiglass or Lexan that could be affixed. An average rock won't go through it. So the fear of the window breaking, that could be a solution for you. Again,
wouldn't it be ugly to stick a piece of plexiglass on top of it?
I'm just trying to prevent the window from getting broken.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean just temporarily? Oh, okay.
I think that what you're hearing is that it's not a traditional treatment in the district to have large pieces of ironwork as you're proposing. So we don't really have a precedence for that. And And probably one of the earliest comments that was made was feeling that it communicated something that was, I think, really prison-like. And we don't have that in this historic district, and I guess hoping it doesn't happen here as well. But we don't need to I mean, there's been a lot of communication. If you do, if you are gonna pursue with Amazing Glass, you may want to go over there to Lexington Ave, take a photo, a good photo of your window, take a measurement of the windows as well, so that just they have an order of magnitude and you can talk to them. Yeah, you can just talk to them and find out what your options are. So you might have to.
Are they open on Saturday?
Livingston, I'm sorry, Livingston, not Lexington.
I believe that they're open on Saturday.
Don't know, you'll have to find that out.
Yeah,
we
I can
don't know.
provide you, Julia, I will provide you with a list of both local window distributors, and then there's Amazing Glass, and there's a couple other places locally that can reglaze windows for you and provide you with multiple glass options as well.
Yeah. And then my question to the
The reglaze will be a less expensive option because otherwise you're at a brand new window.
well, I have to pay for this anyway since I ordered it already. Yeah, but thank you for those ideas. And a question I have for the planning committee is we end up realizing that the best option for us would be to try to proceed with the welded grill. What would be an acceptable height of the grill, and perhaps an added rationale for that height? That would be really helpful for me.
I don't want to speak for anyone else or even myself to say that it would be acceptable, but I think it would be half as intrusive as what you have now. I would probably look towards the maximum would be the meeting rail of the upper sash and the lower sash. At least that's the way.
The picture again, so you could point that out to me.
1 second. Let me just figure out where my controls are. So here, Marilyn?
No, I would go back to the photograph of the building because I don't know those dimensions.
We're trying to point out the meeting route.
Right,
I wouldn't include that scroll work.
probably not. Yeah.
I wouldn't even include the part that bows out. I wouldn't put any.
Not just straight on.
Modified and certified.
No, I think that's fine.
just
We're
as
just trying to
well.
communicate that if there was a solution that included a security grill that the commission was comfortable with, if there was, then, and it's something that the applicant is going to pursue or examine, and we've got a drawing of it, probably a place to start would be no higher than that. That's the meeting rail right there, where the top and the bottom sash meet.
I wouldn't even.
And there, I don't know, Julie, if you heard that, but there's even concern.
I
that-
wouldn't either. Yes, I heard that.
Okay.
I think reglazing would be the more appropriate solution to this. It's unfortunate you've already spent money on the ironwork.
Well, we've done fairly extensive research by talking to a lot of professionals in the field, and this came out to be what was recommended to us as the most secure solution for the two concerns that we had, and I would sleep much better if I was able to have the grill in place.
Here's another idea, looking at the front again. What about if you had some storms that were created that covered the windows that were of a non-breakable glass? I know shatterproof, laminated temper. Maybe that's an option, some kind of storm that's attached and fixed?
A storm window? Sorry,
Yeah, with the appropriate glazing, in those storms, that would give you the protection?
Well, that's typically what churches do.
Mhm.
Churches have replaced a lot of the plastic glazing that they used 30 years ago with laminated glass and place those in front of the irreplaceable stained glass windows. And they are incredibly strong and effective in providing that level of protection. I mean, we're talking about, protecting, $2 million worth windows. So it's done all the time.
I think that's the best solution. Where were you like 20 minutes ago?
I was just following the conversation, and
I think that's a very good
I
solution,
really
actually.
was concerned about the safety issue, that you're really locking yourselves in there.
Yeah.
Especially you can't get in, you can't get out either.
Okay.
But that was a big.
So Aaron can keep talking to you kind of in greater detail, Aaron, in terms of storm windows. If that's a direction they want to go, you can work with Julia.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
continue on with Julia and reach out with some additional information and some of the alternate options that were discussed tonight, so.
thank you.
Okay. Did you have any other questions for the commission before we?
No, I'll wait until you reach out to me with the information we discussed.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, well, thank you, and certainly hope this has been helpful in your search for increased security.
Thank you.
Okay,
Anything else? All right, I will be in contact, Julia, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
the next item on the agenda is 184 South Swan Street. I guess we didn't ask if anyone from the public had any comments, but
There's. It's just us.
okay. So on to 184 South Swan in the Center Square Hudson Park Historic District.
So both of the applicants are here, Phil and Charlie. The planning department received a building permit, to repair and stabilize the existing masonry stoop. Part of the scope of work is to remove the failing brownstone facing, or veneer, that's applied over the base brick. And replace that with new brick to match the existing brick on the masonry structure. They did reach out to Adam Ross Stone in order to see if there was a possibility of sourcing new brownstone. Adam Ross does have salvage stone available. And I believe, Charlie, you told me that it was at least $400 a piece.
$400 a stone, but it's a little darker. They have another option. It's an Ingera Rentstone, I believe. That's around $225 a stone, but that's a lighter stone.
Mhm.
So either option wouldn't match.
So based on the price of the materials to replace or have something appear match in kind, they've determined that it is prohibitive, and which is why they're requesting a certificate of appropriateness to proceed with the installation of a facing brick rather than something to match the existing brownstone.
Is the intent you're stabilizing it so you're keeping the existing brownstone treads?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, the whole composition of the building, the step is a very critical kind of counterpoint to the brick of the building. And we certainly appreciate the difficulty you face with the,
What is that from? That's from September 2019.
How much of the brownstone, since a lot of that did come off, or some of it fell off and was removed, how much of it do you have salvaged that could in fact be reinstalled?
If you want to come up to the table, sorry,
Oh.
as well, and use the
Oh,
microphone. you
Yeah,
can- Both of you, or just one of you, can help an extra
Like,
chair if you would like.
the problem, Phil can also speak to it, a lot of the stones, they're spalding on it, so you have, keep the 4 inches, you go in a little bit, then there's that much left of the stone. And we're both pretty big into preservationists. I brought some pictures. We have a couple buildings on Tenbrook Street of exterior doors that we restored. Actually, Phil did most of the work and helped them do installation. But I don't know if you guys could see, we did this project a couple years ago, we won an award from the Historic Albany Foundation. These doors were from the parts warehouse. And that's them today. Phil did all the work. This is 79 Tenbrook. And the latest one Phil did the doors was at 37 Tenbrook. 1 second. So you can see a before and after of the 2 doors. There's another view. There's just a lot of man hours went into it. That's the finished product. So going with that, we would absolutely like to do the brownstone, go with it, but the cost factor is the one main reason why we decided to go with the brick.
And you cannot reuse any of those salvageable pieces that is lying up there.
The problem with the reusing them, even the brick that, or the sandstone that we get from Adam Ross, it doesn't exactly match the old sandstone. It's slightly darker, so it's still not going to look quite right, even if we were able to use even a fraction of those. Most of those blocks are in pretty bad shape. And so you would end up with a large patch with some odd old stone around it, and the cost would be about $16,000. And we could replace the whole thing with the cheaper, $225 a block. But that brings us up to about $20,000. Our entire profit on this building last year was $3,457. We simply can't justify a $20,000 brownstone facade when we're only making $3,000 a year net profit on the building.
What's the reason for the sandstone coming off? Why did you have to remove it? It just
We
peeled
didn't
off?
remove it. The water got down behind, from 140 years of sitting out there, the water got down between the brick and the sandstone, and it just collapsed. It detached from the, it's got a layer of mortar between the brownstone and the brick that's the actual structural part.
Now, is that brick behind it compromised?
No,
Pretty weird.
the brick behind it is okay.
I'm kind of curious, is it just like hollow underneath there? How does that work? Because it's just all encapsulated, no vents, no nothing, it's just hollow. Is there access from like underneath?
Yeah, the door to the downstairs apartment is behind that stairway.
Oh, against the wall.
Yeah, on the
adjacent
left-hand
to it.
side, you see where that window is? That's where if you turn right at that window, the door is there for the downstairs.
So how did the water get in
Right.
to create the problem?
Raining down on the steps. The steps stick out from the front of the building. There's no overhang over them. So it's just 140 years of rain.
Open mortar joints, there's lots of ways for water to get
Yeah.
into that wall and compromise it.
So my immediate reaction is, if there's a hardship, that's not for us to make the decision on. So if there's a financial hardship, that's not ours.
So, well, it would need, in order for, they could apply for the financial hardship if the application was denied. by-
Understood.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
sorry.
But I don't I don't know all the details here. I don't know if your stone is face bed or how it's laid. I don't know if any surfaces could be removed and reinstalled, if the stone could be turned around. I don't know any of that. I mean, I know you can do all of that. I don't know the condition of the brick behind. I don't know how many new stones you need. I don't know when you spoke of stone that would or wouldn't match, was that next to clean brownstone? Was there a face that you took down to them and they said their stone was or wasn't matching, not what's been exposed for 100 years, but instead what's clean?
The problem is that brownstone from different quarries is different colors.
Mhm.
This brownstone is from a quarry that was quarried 140 years ago. And we just can't exactly, even cleaning it up, we can't exactly replace it.
I do a lot of brownstone, I understand that. My question is, when you said it doesn't match.
Yeah.
And even if you get stone out of the same quarry, sometimes it doesn't match. But that aside for a moment, when you said that the stone they had was either lighter or darker, were you speaking to a piece of stone that had not been exposed, meaning that it was the original color not exposed?
It's hard to say because it's so badly spalled that it's being freshly exposed. None of the surface is 140 years old to speak of. It's all being freshly exposed because it's spalled.
I guess the only point I'm trying to make is that sometimes on projects you match the new or the salvage, new or clean salvage stone. When you install it, you're gonna wait for X many years until it naturally darkens. So initially, it can often seem that it doesn't match, but in fact, it's a good match. It's just you've got to give it time to be exposed. And that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
get at.
that might well happen. It's just a $20,000 experiment for us.
Right. Has your mason done a lot of brownstone work?
That, I don't know. We've got 3 different quotes. The first one was over the summer, Brad Lewis Masonry, but he couldn't do the job. Then we also spoke to Davco Masonry, but for the brick, they quoted us higher. Then, so we went with the middle option. I can't think of his.
This one, the one that's in front of us?
Yeah.
Bill something, yeah.
Bill Niles Masonry. I don't know about, we didn't talk about that because just the proposal was to go with brick. So we didn't talk about his past.
Going with brick does not comply with preservation standards. I mean, that brownstone, sandstone actually, brown sandstone stoop is very characteristic of this building. It's a unique feature. And my suggestion off the cuff is to keep what you have, make sure that you can prevent any more water infiltration. Whatever you need to do, I don't know how the water's getting in. It can't, not unless it's going in, you have open water joints and it's raining in horizontally. I don't know.
Is the whole wall leaning and
Yeah,
the veneer wall leaning in time and then off the top, maybe
And it-
it's way in.
and it-
I can't tell from a picture, but.
and it may be an idea is to, if you can't reuse any of that sandstone, is to replace the missing pieces with cast concrete. In those specific shapes, rock face to match the stone. Tint it and anchor it to the substrate, to the brick substrate. Replacing that entire thing in brick is not gonna fly. It's just, it's inappropriate for the building.
It's a good idea. My suspicion is that it's gonna be even more expensive
Well,
because it's gotta be custom fabricated for this project, specific sizes and to some degree, even the list of contractors capable of doing that is even a shorter list.
Yeah,
But I like the idea.
it's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, they kind of like the idea of brownstone too. It's just, we can't afford it.
Right.
Yeah.
I
wonder, do you have a blank without the, obviously, the monster that caused it? I wonder if it'd be possible to, put a panel in the middle and recycle what you had and make the panel a different, slightly different color. So that it looked like it was designed to have a closed window or something like that. I wonder how much you're short of good stone that's actually usable.
When you, I was just thinking of something similar. Are you envisioning the panel,
Yeah, it
the
would
new
look like
material
an
to be to be
indentation.
stone or to be brick or what?
Well,
Something other, right?
I'm not pushing it one way or the other. I'm just saying is if you did everything you could with all of the original stone as you have, and you're gonna wind up with a blank spot somewhere. And if you could find something creative to do with the blank spot, it could look like a closed window. Many times we've seen, particularly somebody has a colonial house and it's not parallel, so they have one house with it, where the shutters are closed and it looks better. The fact is, they just don't have a window there, but it doesn't look right unless you can get the symmetry to go in. If you had something like that, that if you took a look at what you had left and you put it all back and you wound up with a blank in the middle, and if you wanted to make it look like either a niche that would be a contrasting color or closed shutters or something, so that somebody would not think twice about it.
How much of the stuff that fell down? So we have two problems. We have one, stuff that fell and broke.
Yeah.
Which obviously can't use. But we also have a lot of stuff that fell that was originally 4 inches thick,
Yeah.
but has fallen so badly that it's 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
And do we consider that reusable or do we not consider that reusable? I don't know. You know, if we're gonna pour 20 grand into it, I'd kind of not consider half of a block reusable, but.
Well, except if you were thinking of it as a facing material and you change the backup, then it's like another brick, right? It's as if you were doing brick, just as a veneer. So you could go in that direction.
It looks like you've got some there that's
There are a few
useful.
pieces.
Yeah.
It can be.
You know how many we have.
Time you
And it depends on your definition of salvageable also, but you know, if we define salvageable by our standards, we can tell you how many we have that are salvageable and see how big a hole that leaves.
Yeah.
But
As a whole, could either be a niche and
Yeah,
somebody would
I
not think
fear that
twice.
it sounds like a great idea, I just fear that the cost of that is also, it's gonna be comparable to just building the new wall with the new brownstone block, that we're still gonna be up in the area of expense that it's hard to justify on a $3,400 property.
Well, that's your hardship discussion. That's
Okay.
we don't get that part of the discussion. So I think what we're saying is, can we get the spider? That was so last month. So I guess the question is, if you could draw this up and you could see, you probably want most of the stone at the base, right? That just feels, I think, don't know. But how much stone you have that could be reused at the base, and then where you have no more brownstone to use, then I think that's what you're asking about. Then there's some options. I even think it could possibly be brick at that point. But I don't know, it could be brick, it could be a stucco material.
Yeah, it could be a
Recessed.
stucco finish. I mean, I think there are lots of examples on Willett Street where you do see stoops that have, openings within them. That
Or a
are
recessed
all
panel.
alternate material.
And there's actually a doorway that opens to a basement there, would it be?
Structurally,
Get
I
some
need to open
ventilation
that up
or some
and get-
natural light or some warm,
That's
a different,
structural.
bigger project.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now we have a brick wall that's supporting some rather heavy
Yeah.
sandstone
Yeah.
steps. I'm disinclined to fiddle with that brick wall.
No, I don't think you want to. Jack has to excuse himself.
Actually, I'm not so sure, you know it better than I, but from that photo, I don't know that you can fully ignore that brick wall. But I don't know, your masons have looked at it, it doesn't look, it looks like it potentially could have its own problems, but it's backup, so.
My guess would be that if it was left open like that, it would eventually have some problems.
Get worse.
But
Yeah.
at the moment,
Yeah.
it's solid.
What I would, if this is a current photo, while you're in the process of resolving this, and now you're, unless you're gonna do weather protection, temperature protection, you're kind of like on to next year, because
Yeah,
this
we're
is all
stuck.
temperature
Yeah.
sensitive. I'd get some cribbing, put some 2x under those top stones to hold them in place. Because at some point, you could have a lot more failure. So the one that's kind of already, at least kind of hold that in place, than those other upper stones. I recommend that you do
Well,
that.
also
The brickwork-
protecting it from more moisture intrusion.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Even
freeze thaw
Covering
cycles,
also for now, for the winter.
right, for the
Yeah.
winter.
That brickwork it needs to be covered or protected.
Yeah, that's a soft brick, it's gonna absorb water and,
It looks like it's in trouble now, to be honestly truthful with you.
Yeah, that's what I was. So, yeah, if you
I
could
don't,
kind
yeah,
of,
I don't think it's in trouble at the moment. I think it was just laid up as it was never intended to be visible wall.
Mhm.
And so
Right.
I don't think they exhibited a great deal of care when they laid the wall.
But it's solid.
Structurally, it seems solid.
okay, well, you know better. We haven't
I
seen
mean,
it.
obviously, if it's 3 wides of brick, it's probably in pretty decent shape. If it's only 2 wides, then you gotta look at it a little more closely.
Should we do a site
Well, that's what I was just gonna suggest,
visit?
is that, would you be open to the idea of a few of us coming by and looking at it and kind of kicking the tires and offering some suggestions?
I'm sorry, are we open to that?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that would be
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think,
We'd like to do whatever we can with the money we have to do it with.
Before you know that the sand in the brownstone that's falling apart, that's quite desirable for some masons. Slice it up and mix it in,
Yeah.
TNT and different things like that, so. I'll get jars of that, sell them on a stand or something, raise some funds.
Just while we have your undivided attention, are we gonna need a permit to put up the framework to hold up the remaining brick?
I can find out for you, Phil, and, I would think most
I
likely
mean,
not.
it sounds like a great idea, because we're
Right.
apparently not gonna get to it this fall.
I,
So,
Yeah,
you know,
I'll-
we would need to put something up, but if we need to get a permit, we need to get it pretty quick.
yeah, I'll reach out to the building department and find out. I would think that it could most likely
there
not
may be a
just stabilize. Yeah.
stabilization permit process that they have, but
But
something
I'll
to-
find out for you tomorrow and let you know, one way or the other.
I mean, it's like 4 2x.
But I think you would also need to cover it up.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Tarp it,
With
tarp
plastic.
it,
Yeah,
tarp
plastic,
it.
yeah.
So no water gets behind, gets
Right.
between
Well,
the existing sandstone that's there and the backup wall.
We can certainly put up a plastic cover behind the 2x4s that hold up structurally the rock. To address your point, I don't think it's gonna keep the water that's coming from underneath from getting, I mean, the reason that veneer came off was water somehow getting from the backside. And until we put up something new, that's gonna be a problem, because we have to
It could be,
close all those joints that you see along the top.
are there open joints between the riser and treads of the stairs?
Probably, I don't know.
That's where a
Well, I
lot of
would be
water would be
surprised
coming
if there
from.
weren't.
then. So maybe you would need to caulk that. I'm gonna try to do that as soon as possible. Caulk all the joints between the riser and treads of the stone blocks.
How soon could we visit this?
Well, let me,
Oh, not too far.
no, I just have another question first before we do that. There's some sort of a cementitious coating on, right?
Mhm.
There's something there, so somebody's been there before, it's
And
not
done
a
something.
solid mortar bed.
I
So,
think that was the original, mortar that held the sandstone veneer against the brick. And in some places it's come off the brick, and in other places it came off the back of the
okay, so
sandstone.
you've seen it. So my question is, here's a technical question, is I wouldn't be surprised that the long-term solution, brick or stone or whatever it would be, could include some sort of a full cementitious coating on that brick
Well, I expect it
before
would.
whatever veneer
Yeah.
goes on. And kind of like a Thurseal, but probably not a Thurseal, something more breathable. But if it wasn't temperature sensitive, or if it could be protected, would it make sense to do that work now instead of the plastic sheathing?
But now, this is something we have to ask the mason this.
Yeah.
But, because another problem that you run into is old lime mortar between the bricks.
Yep.
And then putting some new hard surface on the outside, and then you induce a whole new set of problems.
Right, that's why I said Thurseal, but not Thurseal.
Now, you'd need some sort of a lime plaster.
Yep.
Parge coat, something like that.
Like a typo mortar wash
Yeah.
or something. Okay, that's probably too much for now, probably the 2x for right now.
Yes, for
Right.
Okay.
2x duct tape and plastic.
for November 3rd, it's gonna be 2x4s.
Okay, now you can.
Oh, no, just when might we be able to schedule a site visit? We can let some.
Well, Aaron, can you contact them
I
and
will
see when
contact them and
available times would be to,
we can do it early next week if that works for you all. We can schedule something maybe for Monday or Tuesday and we can get out there as early as possible. So that you can,
If you can do Monday, the weather's forecast for Monday is still good. I don't know what Tuesday is.
right. Yeah, I'll look into it. I'll send an email out I'll get some times from you all and then I'll send it out to the commission and see when we can get.
How many?
We can't have more than 4.
okay.
So.
Okay.
I will.
Well, I'd like to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're looking at the 4 of us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say,
does the brownstone have a coating on it? It doesn't.
No, I don't think it does. It's very powdery.
Oh, there it doesn't look like it does at all. There's
No,
that next
it doesn't.
photo that looked like it did. Okay.
It's a nice stone. It looks good.
Looks like
The one that's.
looks like its face.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah.
it looked
No,
very nice.
it's a-
when we-
it's a
one of
handsome
the places
block.
was
The way that some of it's going.
Yeah, yeah,
going
yeah.
off.
How long have you had it?
3 to 4 years?
And it took 3 years, 4 years for that damage to happen.
Well, I'm sure it was going on for years, it's just you didn't see it until.
Right.
Then it kind of just
You
belly
can
up.
kind of see
Great
some of it down here,
Yeah, that,
but I mean, this is back in 2019.
Boy.
Yeah.
3 years, less than 3 years, 2 years.
Yeah, to, Chris, to your comment about the blue form for this is 184 is also known as 2 Irving. And so the inventory form for this building is from Irving Street. You can just see the side of this stoop, but there's no pictures from
So they
Swan
come around the
Street.
corner.
No, Tony O'Pata decided not to turn that corner, so I'll have to talk to him about it.
You have to be
Okay.
somewhere.
Yeah. So, I will, I'll send you an email or to both of you tomorrow to get some times to coordinate for Monday or Tuesday. And we'll plan to get out early, next week, and that way, as long as we get all the information, we can get you on the agenda for the hearing on November 17th. And that way, if you do need to go forward for a hardship modification, if the application does get denied, we can get that in front of the commission in December. And then go from there. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we
Any other-
certainly want to help in any way we
Yeah,
can
we
to
appreciate it.
do the right thing here, so,
Thank you, Charlie, thank you.
All right.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Good evening.
Is there any audience? Or are we,
It's just Martha. Let me.
Hello.
Hi, Martha.
hi, Martha.
Actually,
Can I ask a question about this calendar?
yep, we're gonna go over that now, actually.
Is it correct?
Technical question.
Oh,
Go ahead, Chris.
I noticed that the brownstone steps themselves have been painted. Would that help compromise
It could.
stone in different ways? Now there's a science to what we're talking about, thermal color, or this color, how to use that.
Right. So brick and stone is a porous, breathable material. And, when you see a hard face brick, it's been fired for longer, so it's more durable. It usually has like some sort of like glazing face on it, or it's, and a lot of cases, if you're painting over those materials, such as, our brownstone masonry or the brick, you're more or less kind of like our faces, you're clogging those pores, and that, water infiltration from some point, whether it's from the behind or some other, it's then trapped and it can't come out, and so then it starts to break down that hard facing, and that's where you'll see bricks either become soft or begin to fall and break off.
And the brick is gonna be, it's only probably kind of, well, brick might even be stronger than this, I mean, not.
Yeah, not this bad.
Pretty relative.
Right. So it can
Yeah, I
be,
saw a set of stairs that got painted gray, they were brownstone over on West.
yeah.
We do such a thing.
Oh, is that straw?
I don't know, but it's not, a Paul Lumber's block.
Yeah.
boy, I'm on a project right now. It's a stone tower with a stone spire.
So unusable.
They repointed the spire 25 years ago. And at the base of the spire, where it hits the square tower, stones are falling out. I mean, they're like falling out.
Probably.
And the engineer had a really, so aside from this whole discussion, I kind of breathed.
Tonight, we are off on two different conversations. So Lee and John, can I call everybody back? We've got two, we're still in a meeting. We have two separate topics going.
I was still on the last one.
Right? So in front of you, we have a draft meeting schedule for 2022. It's not set in stone as of yet, and I was telling John about this before the meeting started. We're looking at rearranging our public board meetings so that planning board, board of zoning appeals, and historic resources commission all take place in the same week, unless there's a public holiday where the building will be closed. And spacing them so that they are 3 weeks apart, which would then cause us to have months where there will be only one meeting, and then other months where there will be 2 meetings. This would reduce the number of meetings that we have by 7. So it would go from 24 meetings down to 17 meetings for the year. And we would also be getting rid of the designation of having, where we currently have a workshop at the first meeting of the month and then a hearing at the second meeting of the month. We would be getting rid of those designations and then kind of going back to the way that we used to hold our meetings, where it could be either, like we could either just be having a workshop, or we could be having a workshop and a hearing, or just having a hearing. We're looking at kind of rearranging things. It also gives planning staff more time to review applications and prepare applications from the time that they go to a workshop to when they go to a hearing, where we're currently looking at a really, really short turnaround time because the meetings are only 2 weeks apart. So like tonight, for the applications that we've heard tonight, I have to, if they're going to be placed on the November 17th agenda for a hearing, I have to have all that material ready to go out tomorrow. So if there's additional application materials that are requested by the board, I'm sending out a notice that they'll be on the next hearing agenda when I haven't necessarily received any of the supporting or additional documents that you're requesting, and then waiting an additional week to get that material. And sometimes I don't receive it, so then it's postponing that, reissuing the agenda and postponing that item. So by giving us 3 weeks between the meetings, that gives us an extra week of time to be able to review applications and get additional information from applicants.
Are the other boards finding that having that 3-week time period between meetings would be beneficial to them?
Yeah, I think staff, Zach Powell, who staffs the planning board, and Elise Rodon, who will be handing it over to another staff member, who staffs the board of zoning appeals. We've all kind of had the same thought of having an additional week would give us more time, but it would also give staff kind of more time, leeway to do other things in between meetings as well. Work with other applicants or work on other applications. But I think we're all kind of looking at the same thing as if boards are asking for additional information, we don't necessarily have enough time to either get that information or review that information before we put it in a packet and distribute it to our boards.
Well, that's been a recurring problem we've had where applicants have been here at one meeting, we give them suggestions, but, oh, by the way, you need to have it in tomorrow in order to be on the agenda
Right.
the following meeting, scheduled meeting.
Or, placing them on an agenda because we need to get it noticed, because we have to have the agendas posted within a certain period. We have to send out postcards to the neighboring properties, and then we also have to send them a property posting to put on their building, which is all legal requirements by code. So sometimes we are, I'm kind of tentatively putting them on an agenda. So in case they do get the information to me in time, I'm not having to push them out, but there are cases where they get on an agenda and they might be waiting on architectural drawings, and it takes 3 weeks to get those architectural drawings. So then we're pushing them out even further.
Yeah, can we assume that the agenda will get larger and the meeting will get longer?
I mean,
Have a lunch.
yeah, we'll just have a break for dinner, I guess. But
You're so funny about it.
some of them might be a little bit longer, the meetings that are that, for the months that we only have one meeting scheduled, those meetings might be a little bit longer. Those meetings might also function as both a workshop and a hearing. So we might be doing something like tonight where those items are the beginning of the meeting, and then we might go into a hearing directly after that for review of other applications that have come to us earlier, or if there are simple enough applications, we could do it where I notice them for that agenda item, we do a workshop, and then we go directly into a hearing and we vote on that application that night. So
You can also start earlier. How early would you start?
well,
5
the
o'clock?
problem was that we used to be starting at 5:30, and it was difficult for people with 9-to-5 jobs to navigate getting here with traffic. So there were a number of times where we waited for members to get there in order to have a quorum to start a meeting. So the other board, and we pushed our meeting to 6 o'clock because the other two boards were also meeting at 6 o'clock. So it made more sense to have every land use board be held at 6 o'clock.
So I have 2 questions. One is, what is the benefit of having all of the board meetings the same week?
We thought it would be, part of it is logistics for us, is that we would get them out of the way in 1 week. That would give us more time to possibly focus on other projects that the planning department has going on, as well as being able to work on our land use board. Because we currently have 3 staff members that all we're doing is just focusing on land use and not being able to go to attend other meetings or work on other projects in the department. So we thought being able to have them just 1 week that we'd be able to set this room up. This room would be set up for 3 days
Ah.
straight, you wouldn't have to
So
worry about it.
some of those logistics.
So some
okay.
of that logistics,
Yep.
you know, if there's other meetings taking place through the city, we would then also have other staff members, like, we might be able to attend those meetings if we're short on staff members. Also, if, you know, for things that might require seeker, usually the planning board is the lead agency on those, so they could act on an item on Tuesday and we could act on an item on that same item on Thursday. So it may also help kind of start moving
Streamline
some
that
projects
process.
through more quickly and streamline, yes.
Okay, I certainly appreciate that the 2-week cycle, aside from if it's staggered or not, and I'll assume that internally that makes a lot of sense. The 2-week cycle for us really came about because we said it would be very helpful to have workshops where we felt freer to have those kind of conversations rather than the more formal, no, that's not compliant and we're gonna reject it, right? So we were interested in the workshop format.
Right.
So.
Can I butt in real quick? Because I was thinking
Yeah.
about that. I'm gonna cut in, you're gonna come back to this, I'm sure. Now, does the person we're talking to on the other end of our workshop, are they aware that we're having a conversation that's loose and they can just propose ideas?
Yes.
And that,
So when we have applications come forward,
I'm just curious.
that is explained to applicants that this is a workshop, it's a time for the board to be able to kind of openly discuss your application. It's a time when they may be requesting further information from you, providing you with guidance as to how your application does or does not meet the ordinance. You know, and sometimes give you an idea as to, like, you know, this application may be approved, this application might be denied, if, you know, or, you know, alternative ideas that may not have been considered as well, so.
Are we all engaging it the same way, loosely? That's what
I
kind of
think
concern.
I think we need to be clear about it.
Yeah, like I
More
wish
clear.
they could say, like, no, we haven't for anybody, or ask even questions. You know,
Right.
They may have some kind of questions for somebody.
Right.
And I do say that our discussions are a little bit are different than the 2 other boards that, and you know, I think I discussed this with John when we had talked about going this way, like, you know, the other boards don't take public comment tonight, and they don't necessarily engage with the applicant as much as we do, or have that open discussion with the applicant as much as we do, where they might just ask questions and then that's it, like, they don't provide for further discussion. So I think if you find it beneficial to be able to have kind of a more open discussion with them about, you know, things that they've considered, or having information, or what they should be looking, you know, alternate options, then if that works for this board, I think we're a little bit different than the other 2 land use boards as well, because we're a little bit more technical with, like, how treatment of buildings and things like that.
I don't think we were clear enough, for example, tonight. I think it would be, if we continue the workshop format, I think for all of us, reminding ourselves and the applicant that it's a workshop versus stuff. But the other point is, we were interested in the workshop format so that we could amongst ourselves say, gee, what do you think of it? Suppose we shrunk that. No, suppose we only had half the grill. Oh, that'd be better. Well, that'd be better. So it gave us the opportunity to talk among ourselves
And
as
we-
much as to the applicants.
Well, and we can pull back then maybe on the discussion, the open discussion, if you want to go more towards the way of, like, how the planning board.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not suggesting
no,
we
just
do
the
that. I'm just
opposite.
saying that's valuable too, but we felt,
I mean, I'm hoping that people that we do reach out to and do talk to are gonna share some of that information with their neighbors. And preservation rolls on. But thanks.
yeah, I didn't mean to be critical, but I meant that I saw the workshop, I thought when we first talked about it, it was both for that kind of conversation, but as much for us to kind of roll up our
Well,
sleeves.
yeah, it's our kind of internal workings as well.
Right.
That we were looking to the workshop. It has evolved in practice into almost a pre-review of what's coming up
Right.
the following week or the following 2 weeks.
So,
Right.
maybe one of the things that we can do is I can do, instead of, the applicant is always given the option of being here, and I think maybe we need to make it more explicit that this is going to start off as just a discussion between commissioners.
I don't think you could do that.
No? Yeah, I think
Well,
we-
you gotta know,
Oh,
oh, you mean,
I'm saying if it's a workshop, like,
Oh,
make
okay.
it explicit at the very
Right,
beginning that
session.
this is going to be a discussion by the commission of the application.
the only problem with that
And then if need be,
we need information from them. So for example, with the window grates today, we could have had a whole technical discussion around it without any information about, and I don't even know how this impacts our decision, of this owner's set of concerns, right? So we wouldn't have known that the window went through and, I mean, there was a little more than we can technically deal with, or maybe this situation. So to not, they have information that we need to,
right,
yeah,
there, right?
yeah.
No, I think the format works well. And alerting them to the fact that we're not making a decision. We want to have an open discussion. It's more fact-finding than it is decision-making. But we can certainly inform you of the direction that we are leaning
Right,
and what might transpire at the following
Yes,
Yeah.
meeting.
hearing.
yes. So if they wanted to be here to answer questions,
Yeah.
that's great. And maybe if we're going to be doing workshops and actual meetings in both, we can kind of remember for each project that's presented, that when it opens, you'll remind us
Right.
that, okay, this is a workshop. That would be helpful.
All right, that's
Because I
my
think the
job.
conversations
I'll
are-
try and do that a little better.
No, well,
Well,
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I'm just really kind of curious if on the other end, do they understand that it's a workshop? Not that they're all waiting a decision, but ultimately the conversation we're having is leading towards whatever direction they wanted to go, now just reform
right,
in so many ways. Now, if they were, asked those questions, why do we think it's not a good idea, or what it does? Because there is a real sense of awkwardness talking to them and in any way kind of slighting anybody or making them feel like their concerns aren't really all that grave, how do we really
yeah, well, I think,
touch that?
we've,
I don't
like, a
think
number
it's
of, like,
right.
I think the commission training and things like that, one of the things that is always pushed is that it's not looking at it like, it sounds very, but looking at it from, like a non-personal level of just applying the code of, well, this is what the code says, and, we understand that these are your concerns, but this is also kind of the law that we have to follow.
I think that's
and
very
the-
important that you do state that like you have, that
Right.
this is what the code says, but still a variance of some kind is being asked of.
Right,
This high, that high, no, we're really how high?
so,
the hardship one's easy, because that's a financial hardship as defined. That one's
right,
easy.
Yeah.
It's the security and I already bought it, or here's my, I thought he was gonna do it right, he told me, that's part of it.
Are there other windows on the side of the building where she could install this and not,
Ugh, that's an expensive piece of iron.
it's very big,
they've got a lot invested in that. It's really unfortunate that they either got misled by the people they spoke to.
Sure. Or they never
But
spoke.
if you walk around the neighborhood, there are no iron grills on living levels of buildings. Except that one instance around the corner or up the street where they had the half-height ones.
Except, I agree, what's interesting is that upper portion with the twists and the flame, I don't know the name of the shape at the top, that was pretty well done and matched what was below.
Yeah.
And, and those beautiful, that.
Well, that almost evokes the same feel you got with the old little balconies.
Yeah.
I was thinking that,
On the fronts of-
Juliet window, some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so somebody was,
No, there's a fair amount of artistry that went into that. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that they went this path because they clearly spent a good deal of money on it. And I think
They
the
did want to
idea of
share.
saying, okay, maybe, can you modify it and, install the half height one? I mean, it's not my preference. I don't like the idea of, basically
it's the
fencing
store
this.
window solution. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It just took them so long to wake up.
The windows appear to be final. I just following this
Yeah.
conversation and the glazing.
Yeah.
And I know that probably sounds really complicated to a common,
Right,
so that's like, how do you uncomplicate this?
that was great.
A regular stuff.
No, and the fact that they're used on, many of the churches use that
See
now.
it, and then
The laminated
when I
glass
ask
is,
these questions.
that stuff is brutally strong. And it will always stay in the frame, even when it's broken.
When the frame. Okay, so this is instead of our old 4-week or our new 2-week, this is a 3-week schedule cycle.
Correct.
Mhm.
We'll combine, it's better for you guys to do them all right across the week.
Yep.
And if it didn't work, there's nothing fixed to it.
Correct.
And,
And if we find that, that's, if we needed to do like a specially scheduled meeting, we have the option to do a specially scheduled meeting. And if we find that this doesn't work, then we can go back to the old schedule.
it's better for you, yeah.
I know you've got, the generally recognized holidays. You may want to just add Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
So
as well.
Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur should be on here. And as well as the nights before, both of those holidays. And we have, I believe, the first night of Passover. And there's a couple, I think there's August, the date for our meeting is a little bit off in August, and I believe that is in observance of one of the Hindu holidays. One of the major Hindu holidays. So we did kind of take a broad look at other major holidays as well, but I believe September, I think it's the second week of September, the week of like the 12th, the 5th through the 9th, and then the 12th through the 16th. The meetings are off there because I believe Rosh Hashanah is the first full week of September. I believe Yom Kippur is the second full week of September.
So you've gone through that.
We've already gone through that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think you missed it.
We got Black Friday. We got everything except John's birthday.
17.
August 1st.
So like the ones that are denoted in red are the
Right.
ones that the city is closed on.
December 26th should be called Boxing Day. December 26th should be called Boxing Day.
It should be. Do we not have it on there?
You do, you've got Christmas
Day off.
Day off.
Yeah, no, it's Boxing Day.
So are you finalizing this, or is this, can we put it into our calendar?
We will finalize it. I think next week. I think it's been distributed today to the planning board. I don't know if the BZA has seen it. So once it's finalized, I will let you know and I'll send you out an official.
Okay, so we won't.
You don't need to. Yeah.
Don't put it in your calendar yet.
Yet. This is still a draft, but.
So I have an announcement relative to the calendar, which is I will be away January, February, and March. So I can,
Okay then.
yeah, so I can zoom in.
Okay.
I have a fellowship a research fellowship at the Getty in California.
Very nice.
Work on codes. My real interest is getting to those vacant buildings. Yeah. Yeah. I got this idea that we could have we need a, I think you've heard it. So much of our code efforts in communities go to buildings that have architects and engineers and major projects. And then all those vulnerable buildings have so little attention paid to them.
Yeah.
And if you flipped the whole thing, because you already have architects and engineers, and then you got 6 different inspectors, and flip the whole thing and put real resources for those most vulnerable buildings with the most vulnerable populations, that would really change things. Anyway, that's what I found.
Also, looking at this, starting in 2022, this building is going to have HVAC work done on it. And so we will possibly be meeting in an alternate location or going to virtual if we can't find an accessible location. But we will be out of this building for a few months while work is being done on the building, so that we have proper heating and cooling.
You don't get to go back to the chambers?
Well, we might, we'll see. It depends on if there's any conflicts with our schedules.
Yep.
It might also be looking at one of the library branches. We'll see. So it's under discussion. We're considering it, but I think starting in February, we may be in another location.
Well, Marilyn's not gonna be around.
No, she.
She can still zoom in.
And then the other item, I had emailed out, and we can discuss further at the next meeting on the 17th. It's the 3rd quarter vacant building report that's distributed by the building department in San Wells. I would just go through it if you read it, if you do have any comments or anything that you feel needs to be addressed. We'll talk about it on the 17th. And as Marilyn and I were talking at the start of the meeting, we'll have the next, our next emergency action report will be due April 1st, 2022, which we'll look at what we had done up until August through to the end of the year, and then the 1st quarter of 2022. So.
I also just asked Aaron, I did find that document, that little document that I've written up about 89 Clinton and buildings leaving the adjacent building open, and then the treatment of the, remember all that? So I had sent it to you.
You sent it to me and.
And Aaron. So I just mentioned to Aaron, and tell me what you think. I don't mind sending it to Rick LaJoy now, myself, and ask if we can kind of have a follow-up meeting using that. Now that's, I don't think we can do anything else with it. It was something I wrote to you. And we could, if you think that's a good idea, we could get our heads together on the most recent report, and because there were recommendations in there, as well as, gee, there weren't engineers' reports, and then so we could kind of get updated ourselves before we have that call based on what they've done for the next quarter or two, since we wrote, anyway. So do you like that idea?
Yeah,
Follow-up
no, I
call?
think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I think. And, yeah, with
Anybody else
this,
interested?
with this 3rd quarter report, we've got a little more information to ask any questions.
And we don't think that he necessarily has seen any of our recommendations. He certainly wouldn't have seen them if they're in that little communication about the adjacent buildings. But we had a bunch of recommendations in our semi-annual report that we submitted to the council.
Right. I'll follow up with him on that.
So, okay, so we'll try to set up are anybody interested in participating? Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any concerns in terms of if there's more than 4 people on a phone call?
Martha, do you know if there's, would we have to follow quorum for either a phone or Zoom call if there's more than 4 members on the call? Would we have to notice that?
Yes, that would be if there are 4 or more members on a Zoom or phone call, it would be a public meeting.
Right. So we could also set it up as him coming and,
They could vote.
Oh, so it's 4 or more, so there can only be 3 of us to go to.
or no, well,
Well, there's 9 members of the HRC, correct? But
yeah,
when
so
fully
quorum is 5,
5, yeah.
as long as we're under 5 members, then we should be okay.
I think in terms of a conversation with Rick, the less formal we make it, the more constructive the conversation might be. That's just a guess.
Yeah, I think characterizing it as, yeah, we'd like to sit down, have a chat with you,
Okay.
see where things are going within your department, so we can kind of compare notes and fulfill our obligation. And, you know, in that last report, we had a number of suggestions identified and, you know, have a discussion about what those are all about, and what they mean.
Okay.
And I think in keeping it, certainly, it does not want to have any, you know, evidence of confrontation associated
Agreed.
with it. It is, you know, we're all on the same team working toward the same goal.
So does that change whether we have it as a larger meeting or a smaller meeting?
Well, I don't think you don't want to have to notice the meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So I think,
It may make sense to start off with a small meeting, and if we feel that if there's interest or that we feel that this, like, is a good discussion, you can always ask them to come and meet with the whole commission.
Okay.
At a later date as
Yeah.
well.
Like I say, it could get confrontational, and we're talking about how buildings get left for the worse after a demolition. Is that largely what this conversation that we're?
I think there's 2 sets of concerns. One is, you're right, that was from,
It
that was the
opens the door
89
as
Clinton.
confrontational, I'm sorry.
The 89, right, the 89, he's a good guy, he's trying to do good, so it'd be good to see where he's going. So the 89 Clinton is one, and that is when you tear it down, what happens to the surviving building. And the other are the other list are those recommendations that we had in our vacant emergency demolition.
And then I read about what if this would help if there's a bit of a checks and balances here with the preservation specialist and every other.
That's exactly right,
And the structural support that would be shared.
that's exactly
I
right.
guess that was what.
So those are, we'll put them all together, but those are, the points of discussion come from 2 different documents, I think.
what's interesting also, the anecdote that Sam put in this report about the problem they had with this building that kind of kept getting flipped and,
Yeah,
you know, onto another owner.
pushed off to other
And
people.
how that was just one example of how the court process can drag out, and the BRC is kind of held hostage to that process and can't take action,
Right.
because you have to find the owner first.
And then find a new owner that they've.
I mean, you have to buy and sell buildings the same day. There's plenty of stuff, man.
So that's all true.
That's money laundering.
So that's the group of buildings that are difficult to pinpoint, but there's plenty of buildings that you can pinpoint that are still an issue. Where the owners are there, or the city owns it, or the land bank owns
Or
it.
the land bank.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I'll try to make that, I'll start that. I'll copy you both so you know what I'm doing.
Thank you. And then the last thing I have, is if you're still interested in attending the Statewide Preservation Conference,
the New York State Preservation Conference. There are still CLG scholarships available. I gave John a pamphlet tonight. It's going to take place virtually from November 16th through the 18th. And there's going to be a commission training that's also attached to it. I think that's part of the scholarship requirement that you have to
I
attend
didn't see that.
the training. And that does count towards, if you are looking for continuing ed credits, that does count for the continuing ed credits.
Can you send us?
I will send that out to you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, let me do that right now. And then I guess I have one more thing. I did reach out to Cathedral All Saints about services for Norman, because I hadn't seen anything, and I just wanted to make sure that if something does take place, that we all have the information that we would like to attend. They have a tentative date. Nothing has been set yet because they have to schedule around current events that are taking place at the cathedral, and they only hold funeral services on Saturdays. So they said that once they have the date finalized, it'll probably be towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. But that information will be published. That, you know, I will continue to check back if I don't see anything. So I would just keep your eyes open, and if I do hear anything, I will share it with you all.
Do you know anything more about the fire that happened at St. John's on Tenwood?
St. Joseph's?
St. Joseph's, is it?
I haven't heard anything. I know that
It was arson?
it sounds like it was arson. It was set on Halloween in the building. Someone was able to get into the building. Nothing happened structurally, but it sounds like it was set like in the middle of the structure. It was put out, and I believe DGS, engineering, and the building department went down Monday to just do like a brief like walkthrough and inspection of the building. So they do believe that it was most likely set by somebody. So
It must have been a pretty good size for someone to see it.
yeah,
Oh, I don't know anything about it.
I hadn't.
Like Facebook.
Yeah, I hadn't seen anything at all either. Until I got an email from Sam Wells today, telling me that there had been a fire.
Oh,
So
who owns it now?
we didn't. The city
The
does.
city owns it.
So I think that they're looking at doing a security system in the building. You know, we had run electricity into the structure for temporary securities a couple of years ago. And had gone down and done some cleanup because there was a large colony of pigeons living in there, and then secure the building to remove the pigeons. So yeah, I'm not sure. No information had been provided about how they had gotten into the building. I know that they were having issues previously with people going in through the vent system, the sewers. So I'm not sure if they know how they got into the building. It was fairly secured.
Through the vents.
Yeah, supposedly they were getting in, I believe, through Kara, I think, knows the information. There's some vent systems on the one side, like on the south side of the building, that somebody was able to, that's how they were gaining access into the building.
We have a security grate.
Yeah. So,
We'll buy it from you.
Right. What happened, it was a long time ago when we saw, I forgot his name, for St. John's down in the pastures.
Patrick?
Patrick.
Yeah.
Is that,
He did send something, he sent something to me like a day ago, I believe. I haven't really had a chance to look at it. of renderings from like all four sides of the building. I know he's planning on coming back. I don't think it's
Oh,
this
yeah,
year,
so-
maybe next year, so.
Yeah.
He,
He's still going with it.
he's still gonna go forward with that, and then he's also going to, I believe, be coming forward with a rehab project for Holy Innocents. Probably the beginning of next year, so.
Okay.
There are projects, they're coming, so.
Sure. 17 meetings are gonna be enough.
Oh, did you see that photo that I sent you at Central Ave? Or, Clinton Ave? Did I
Oh,
send-
yeah, yeah, I saw
That was
that.
nice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Could you bring that up? So these guys see it?
How the hell they get that up so fast? How'd they get it up so fast?
I was coming up Clinton. And, actually, I was at Adam Ross trying to match Stone the other day. Tuesday, maybe?
Yep, I can, yeah. I had an application come in today, and every piece of the application was an individual
Separate.
email.
Yeah, we're busy.
Just put dinner in the microwave.
How it tells me the prison. All I see is exhaust ducts. That may be traction that was missing from the original.
Who is that?
Are they supposed to be commercial front?
So that's the,
100 something on the south side of Clinton.
Still like tap.
That was ours. right?
yes, that was ours.
Spent a lot of time breaking it up and bridge and recess and.
This isn't the one with the storefront, the one on the storefront is 236. This is
I thought
this is
it was-
106.
And that's how it turned out.
This is 106 Clinton Avenue.
Are you okay with all the exhaust fans? You don't
They're
really
gonna
see
be
it?
a little vent holes.
I was focused on the volume, the expression of the volume, but you're right, look at all those exhausts. That's interesting, yeah, that's what you saw.
Well, I don't know, is it like code, you know, every stove thing, I don't know if it's apartments, I can't remember, it's veteran housing, right? every
So
stove has to have its own
it's
thing.
supportive housing,
We're gonna go and get a roof.
Can you
And-
blow it up again?
and every unit has their own system.
Yep.
And instead of,
So
you
they
know,
have
like,
one.
like 25 Delaware Avenue, each
Wow.
unit will have its own system, but they're chasing everything up to the roof. So everything is gonna go straight up and all their systems are going to be on the roof, where I think a lot of these are individual wall units within the system, so they have to penetrate the
You're
wall
right.
to vent, you have to
Right.
vent out every single unit.
Such a grand looking thing.
Be nice if they could double as lights too somehow, you know.
Geez, I was trying to show you something nice.
I could figure this out.
Anyway, the volume, I think the articulation of the volume worked, I was pleased with that part of it.
Yeah, I would like to see maybe a different color or variation of color.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this was one that originally came forward, it was one plane across with like slight cornice articulation to begin with, and then
That was a couple years back.
Look at all those vents now.
When I do that, I sort of
you're
catch
never
it.
gonna, yeah.
But I see it on every single building that's over 4 stories, a stick frame.
Well, this one, I think they went through on this one and they at least painted all the vents so that they're painted to slightly match the color of the siding. I think it's 526 Central Avenue, up by the firefighters
Yeah.
credit union. They have the same issue there, but I drive by it most nights. I don't think they painted the vents.
No, but the building up there, it's got like a little bit more of a more modern feel. There's no cornice, but there are breaks in it that do that, but there's a little bit more color. They don't stand off as much as this one.
Right.
I wanted to bring it up.
The vents.
It's not a very popular thing, but I think it's the way that
Does
others
it
are
need to
planning
be,
differently.
need to be integrated in some sort of a shade structure over the windows or something to organize them. I mean, it's better to chase them and run them up to the
Yep.
roof level.
Yep.
But, yeah, that's a
Well-
penetration going up through the building that's gotta be protected, and it's more expensive.
And that can be more than-
Well, we'll remember to ask next time.
Yeah, no kidding.
It was a surprise.
Do you want your building to
That's
have
an
measles?
aesthetic. I like to put forward.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, second, all in favor? Stand up.
Adios.
There's another thing that I'm interested in.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Martha.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
From Blake.